So I guess what I first wanted to ask you is, when did you know that you wanted to get in the entertainment business? Was that something that you wanted to do?
I knew in college that I wanted to go into sports broadcasting. I never really knew about children's television or if I wanted to go into children's television. But I always wanted to go into broadcasting, and my love was sports at the time. It just happened to be at that time that when I was, just out of college, Nickelodeon was the first good job that came my way. So, yes, I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting, but not necessarily children's television.
Oh, okay. So sports broadcasting. So you would be happy to work for any type of network like Fox or ABC or ESPN or anything like that?
I had an interview. At the same time I had an interview for Nickelodeon, I had an interview for ESPN and a sports marketing group. But they were, dragging their feet so much on offering a job that I took the Nickelodeon job. So it was always sports that was my love, and I happened to get the job at Nickelodeon, and I loved it from day one. So I never continued to pursue the sports broadcasting after I got the job at Nickelodeon.
Hmm. And was Double Dare the job that eventually led to your first job at Nickelodeon? Was that really it?
That was it. When I was living in New York at the time, and I had a friend who was going to be the talent coordinator, picking the kids to be on Double Dare, and she said, why don't you just go to the interview and see what it's about? And that's how I got my job at Nickelodeon. I went to Philadelphia, and I was a production assistant. They weren't even hiring me to be on air, and I was a production assistant, and I happened to, hit it off really well with Mark, and he knew I was athletic, and they needed someone to do, the stage stuff, and so that's how Dave Shikir and I got our
Mm.
job. And
Yeah.
then it took off from there.
Right, right.
It was being at the right place at the right time. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely. Because Double Dare, that was a huge show. It really kicked Nick off to a whole new level. It really kickstarted things and become the awesome kids network that it is today. Like, did you know how successful it was being when you were on the air?
When we first started, I almost didn't get it. I kind of was looking at the layout of the show and what was going on. I was like, I really didn't understand it. And then as time went on, and I realized that people were dying to get on the show and be in the audience, and when Mark and I would go on the road to be thousands of people, then I realized why it was successful, because it was like a huge birthday party. And that's what it was like every day. It was fun. It was incorporating fun with adults and kids. Kids at first, but then adults got involved. And, that's how I describe it. It was one big birthday party. And I think the reason that show was so successful was because, Mark was so good with, dealing with kids and adults. And then you had Harvey, who was phenomenal in every aspect. And I think what happens is you get a crew that's put together. I don't know if you could duplicate a crew like that again. Everybody got along. Everybody knew their job. And it just clicked. It clicked from day one. So I knew it was going to be a good show, but I didn't realize how huge. I mean, that show was epic. I mean, that show was huge. I didn't realize at the beginning how big it was going to be. It wasn't until like a year or two into it that I realized how many people, that was their childhood. Double Dare was their childhood.
Right.
So, it was just a wonderful group to work with, and it was really fun going to work every day.
Yes, and all of those live events that you guys did across the country, the tours and all of that, like you almost felt like a rock star, basically, you know?
You felt like a rock star, but what people don't understand is it's still a lot of hard work. I mean, Mark and I were doing shows Friday, one show Friday night, two shows Saturday, and two shows Sunday. And it was complete physical energy all the time. We were running through the audiences to get kids and adults to come on stage. You were doing meet and greets before and after. I'm not complaining. It was a great time, but it wasn't easy. I mean, I think people thought our jobs were really, oh, this is a breeze. It really is not. You have to keep, I mean, there's only two of us on stage at all times. And those shows were 2 hours long. And at some point, like we went to the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit, and you have 20,000 people you have to entertain. So it was so much fun. It was so successful, but it was a lot of hard work. It wasn't easy.
Oh, I can imagine just to like stop at a hotel and wake up the next morning and do it all over again. I mean, it must have been exhausting as well to do all of that. I'm surprised. Were you ever surprised that looking back on it, were you ever surprised that you got to do all those crazy stuff? Were you able to keep up with that, you know?
But it was so great. I mean, we had a ball. We and Mark and I are like a brother and sister. I mean, I couldn't have clicked with anybody better than I clicked with Mark. We had a ball. It was so much fun. But I think that it wasn't until somebody else had to do my role because I was sick one time, and they were like, "Oh my God, I don't know how you do this." You really had to keep up your stamina, and you
Mm-hmm.
really had to keep up your energy because it's not like you're just on stage playing all the time. Every 5 minutes you're jumping off the stage and running completely through the audience. You have to make sure you get to every section, and you have to make sure you're bringing up different types of people. You're not picking enough blacks, you're not picking enough whites, you're not picking enough kids, you're not picking enough men, you're not picking. So it was a lot of hard work, and it was successful because Mark and I put in the time to make sure we put on the best show possible. And although it was grueling, it certainly was a success and a lot of fun.
You know, I was reading the book Slime by Matthew Clickstein, and it's funny that you just said it because I remember those quotes that you just said about picking not enough black and Jews. And
Oh, that was. I mean, we had people throwing popcorn in our face, and I can remember always consciously in my head saying, "Am I picking up little girls? Am I picking up little boys? I need to go to section 101. I need to make sure I get to section 505. I need to make sure I'm picking, that beautiful white family over there. I need to make sure I'm picking the black family. It really because we used to get letters all the time. And I used to go through the letters. I used to consciously say to Mark, we got to make sure that we're being, fair to both sides of the arenas, and we have to make sure that we're going to the upper sections and the lower sections. And, thank God we had such a good crew that were so helpful to us. I mean, there were times between shows that Mark and I would be, laying on couches between the dressing rooms because it is exhausting. It was exhausting. And I think that Mark and I were appreciated by Nickelodeon, but I don't think they quite understood how much we did and how much we got done for that network.
wow, and it's funny because I've always wanted to know, like, were there more boys or girls who were more participant in Double Dare from all the shows that you did? Because I know it's a physical activity show, and boys are just like, hands on dirty. That's how they are, and girls, they could be sort of kind of like that, but we don't really know. So, were there more boys or girls reluctant to participate in the show?
Both,
Mm,
both. I never remember it being. No, I mean both. They love that show. I mean, you know, just because boys, have less attention span or told they have less attention span, everybody loves to get messy. You know what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying? Everybody loves to get pies thrown at them and get messy. And I mean, I'm telling you, it was like a huge birthday party. So I can never remember we picked more boys or we picked more girls. It was fairly equal. It was fairly equal. And same thing with when you're picking families. If you pick families, it didn't matter if they had two boys or two girls that were competing. When it became family double dare, you picked the best. And I don't remember it ever being. I remember it being fairly equal. I think the talent department did a wonderful job of being fair and picking both.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember about that.
Right. And speaking of Family Double Dare, that was shot at Nickelodeon Studios. I mean, before it was you guys were filming in Philadelphia, and then for Super Sloppy, it was New York, and then you found out you're going to be moving to Orlando, Florida at Nick. What was your first impression of the place in Florida?
Well, I was sad about leaving Philadelphia because I thought that crew was just. I didn't think you were going to be able to get a better crew than you got in Florida. From the stage manager, Diane Feinberg, to their camera crew, they were artistically gifted. They weren't just cleaning up stages. They were artists. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They were instrumental in putting that show together. I got to Florida, and it was very theme parky to me. But I have to say, the Florida crew was just as good. I mean, we were lucky. We were lucky for the years that we did Double Dare that we never had any bad crews or bad situations. I mean, the stage managers from New York to Philadelphia to Orlando, and the directors and the producers. It was wonderful. I do remember, though, that the Philadelphia crew was extremely artistic. And I do remember a lot of that crew went to Florida. So it wasn't like we went in and we blindly, with the new crew. I do remember thinking that it was really, the Orlando studios were really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The outside was very knit and orange and all that. And I do remember going in and thinking, wow, I mean, you really, when you were in Philadelphia, you were in one studio. That's it. When you go to Orlando, it was a bunch of studios, and it was a theme park. So it was very Hollywood. So I like that aspect of it. It was nice.
Yeah, I was just about to say that you guys definitely had a more bigger this time because the studio was hands-on, very huge, and it could hold up more than two shows at a time, and there was a lot more to do. The infrastructure was more laid out. I mean, it was really, you guys could do a lot more in Florida, basically. Is what it
Well,
seemed
yeah, and
like.
you had the outside because it was always beautiful in Florida. So all the props were stored outside, and it was certainly easier access. And the studio was beautiful. I mean, you had dressing rooms, you had a big studio, you had places where the audience could be held until they were brought in. In Philadelphia, we were just it was new. You kind of were, you kind of were learning as you go on. And I just remember that the studios were beautiful. That's why it was very exciting to hear that they closed Nickelodeon there because it was exactly what TV should be.
Right, right, absolutely, absolutely. And that live opening day celebration that had Mark and Harvey a part of it. Were you there as well?
I was. It was phenomenal. That was like because you had all types of celebrities coming in. Steven Spielberg was there. Yes, I was there, and it was very different. I didn't get to see much because I was doing some live stuff with Mark, and then I was going back and helping on the production side of stuff. So you go in there, you do your thing, and then we were off to the next thing. So I wasn't celebrating as much, but I do remember it being a huge event and a huge success. And you kind of sit there in awe because celebrities are coming in and out, and they're all there for Nickelodeon. So I do remember it being really fun and awe-inspiring. It really was.
Yes, it was definitely an exciting time to be in Orlando because, there was a lot of this talk about it becoming Hollywood East. Was it exciting for the cast and the whole crew to go down there as well and get the entertainment business started, though, in Orlando?
You know, you know, for me, Orlando was just more exciting because there was a bunch of studios, there was a bunch of stuff going on. You have to remember when we were in Philadelphia, we were at WHYY and we were the only thing in that building. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to Florida, there's so much more going on around you, studio after studio. I'll never forget Morgan Fairchild was doing a movie in the studio right next to us, and you're not far away. You had other studios. So all I remember about the time was it was bigger, it was brighter, it was more Hollywood. It was you had the big GAC thing that was outside. I mean, it was all orange and green, and everything was Nickelodeon, and everybody was excited to come see you there. You know what I'm saying? You became mini celebrities there because you were the only ones in the theme park doing it at the time. So it was fun. It was really just fun and exciting, and it was all about Nickelodeon at the time. That's all I remember about it.
Yeah, yeah, and also there was more sliming involved as well, like bigger, better slime with the Gat kitchen that was inside the studio. Did that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was all. It was all slime there. I mean, I remember I had to take 3 or 4 showers a day because I was the only female on air, so I was getting hit all the time. And I just remember just taking shower after shower to get the green gack and all that crap out of my hair. I do remember that vividly. I still can't smell green gack today. It makes me gag.
Oh.
Yes, it does. I gag when I smell it. Right.
Oh, what is it like to get slime? Like I've always wanted to know because I tasted slime. It tastes kind of good actually, but from your experience, from many times getting slime, what is it like for you?
You know, Getting slime never bothered me because I consider myself, a real fun person in real life. I mean, it does get tiring, day after day after day, having to get, slime in your hair. And remember, I was sliding down slides. I was going and diving headfirst into gas pools, and it was just fun. I was the one who probably, well, besides the contestants, I think I was the one who took it the most because I was the only female on the set. But I
Mm-hmm.
have to tell you, we had a ball, and it probably was. Well, I mean, there's a clip of Mark and I where we are head to toe covered in whipped cream, and it's not easy to get that stuff out. And again, I gag today when I smell it, but we had a lot of fun. I was young. I was right out of college, and it was a dream job. So taking 20 showers a week because you have to get signed out of here is not exactly what you sign up for, but it was fun. It really was.
And do you remember what it was made out of, though?
Oh, you have whipped cream, you have green, you have applesauce sometimes. Every once in a while you have shaving cream. I remember it being whipped cream. I remember applesauce being in there, green dye. They came up with some real concoctions back there. It was amazing.
Yeah, and you could eventually smell like vanilla pudding after a while, and I've always thought vanilla pudding had no smell to it, but from people I talked to, they said you could get to smell after a while, you know?
Oh, well, there were times where I'd get slimed between live shows and I'd have to get on a plane. And people would be staring at me on a plane because I'd smell like whipped cream or pudding or slime. It was disgusting. But if you do what you have to do. I got paid very handsomely to get green slime, so I was going with it. It was fun.
So I take it green is not your favorite color at all anymore, right?
I can look at it now, but let me tell you what. There were years I was like, oh, I mean, there were times I'm telling you where I could smell green slime from 2 miles away. I was like, oh my god. But it was really fun. It really was.
It never leaves your head, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you remember other shows being taped at the studio when you were down there in Florida?
I remember Guts. Guts was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, let's see, Guts was in there. I think if I'm that video game was in there for a while, the one that Phil Moore hosted.
Nick Arcade?
Nick Arcade. I remember Legends of the Hidden Temple, and of course the show that Mark and I did, What Would You Do? That was filmed there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I vividly remember Guts going in there, because that was a huge production.
Oh,
All the mountains and the climbing stuff and all that, and that was a good show too.
oh.
So I remember that show.
I would have loved to see you host a game show down there. I'm just now thinking about it as well.
Well, I was up. I was up for the show Guts.
Oh,
I still believe I should have gotten that show. That's my opinion, but I was up for that show Guts. I auditioned for that show numerous times, and not that Michael O'Malley did a fabulous job, very talented, and I take away nothing from him, but it was down to Michael O'Malley, me, and somebody else for that show, and I do remember being upset that I didn't get it, because for as athletic as I am, and that show was perfect for me, but it is what it is.
mm-hmm.
And obviously they made the right choice with it because Mike did a good job. So,
Right.
it's a good lesson for people. You move on. You go on to the next thing. And Mark and I had a good time shooting What Would You Do? That was pretty successful too.
Yeah, it was. I was just about to ask you that because what would you do? It was kind of strange looking back because Mark he says that he didn't like it at all, but it was kind of a I really liked it. The set was really colorful and Byron Taylor, who's amazing by the way,
So
amazing.
he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. I just saw him. We just did an event in New York City in December for the book, the Mitchell book.
Yeah, I saw
And
it.
yeah, and he is the most humble guy and the most talented guy, and he's just awesome.
Yeah, I'm so grateful I got to talk to him. I mean, wow, his mind is just really creative. Like, I don't know where he comes up with this stuff, but he's really an intelligent person, I must say. Really intelligent.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy too.
Hmm. Yeah, and how many shows did you guys tape a day while down there in Florida?
Four. I believe it was 4 or 5 a day. I believe it was four. Yeah, I mean, you literally, audiences were coming in, coming out. You were doing shows. They were going out. You had to warm up the audience. They were coming in. It was a still day. And again, when you were doing the on-air stuff, you were in and out of makeup, in and out of changing because you got sloppy, and you had to make every show look like it was a new show. So it was you'd get in at 7 and you'd sometimes leave at 8.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun. It wasn't like a job. It was really fun. And
Oh,
yeah, yeah, it was 4 shows. I believe it was 4 shows a day.
it definitely didn't seem like a job. You telling me that you got getting the whole showers, taking 4 showers a day, and smelling on the airplane. That's definitely not a job at all. So I understand what you're
Yeah, it
saying.
was fun. It was very fun.
And also, one of the highlights about being at Nickelodeon was the studio tour, where the guests they could like watch you from kind of like a glass monitor from up above, and could watch you guys film or rehearse down below. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I remember that because I remember being shocked that it was. I mean, there was always packed. I mean, to me, it kind of sounded, it kind of looked like, watching animals in a zoo. There was glass and everybody was, watching you. But I thought that they did a nice job of letting people. You can't let everybody in the audience. And yeah, I mean, they did a good job. But it was always packed. There were always people at all hours standing and watching through the tour.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they seem to enjoy it. I mean, I remember going out a couple times and meeting people, and they're so appreciative, and so you know, they just that Nickelodeon when Double Dare was there, it was a huge success. I remember we never had problems getting audiences in for people to come watch. I do remember it always being packed, always.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Double Dare was that was like the number one show. If that like really helped launch the network. I mean, everyone had to see it live to see it in person. And I think that's one of the best things about Nickelodeon Studios was that it made you feel like kind of like a star and just to see your favorite shows up close and personal, it really catered to the audience, I must say.
Well, and I attribute that to Mark and Harvey. I mean,
Mm.
Mark is phenomenal. I don't know if I ever saw Mark really mess up a line, or he was just smooth. Mark is smooth. That's what I say. He's very talented. He's very quick-witted, and same with Harvey. And the mixture of Mark and Harvey together was phenomenal. I don't know if you can duplicate that. Mark was more hyper and out front and getting everybody laughing, and Harvey was his quiet, comical self. But together, they were like, they were magic. They really were. And that's
Absolutely.
not just me saying that. I mean, look at, we all have moved on to our other lives and stuff. And I still say to this day, after 20, 30 years, those two together were just phenomenal. And, bringing Dave and I in, the four of us worked beautifully together. I mean, Mark always included Harvey or included me. And Mark and I ended up having our own, repertoire, our own personal connection because, he knew that I could stay with him and I could handle his wit, and I did, and it was fun.
Yeah, and yeah, Mark and Harvey, they're so cool. I've talked to them and they're really cool and they have so many great memories about doing the show. You guys were an awesome pair, also trio, and yeah, I certainly loved it. And I wish we could do more of those shows. I wish you guys could just come back together for a reunion. I
Well,
think
the
we
funny thing is we went to, we hadn't been together doing stuff, but Mark and I had. Mark and I do a couple things together over the years, but, you know, they brought us back into New York City into that 96th Street Y or whatever that place was, and, it was almost like the audience was so thrilled to see the Double Dare group back together. It was a 30-minute segment, and, I mean, I think they're crazy for somebody not bringing even that aspect back because there was Mark Harvey and I and Dana Calderwood and a bunch of people on stage, and people just loved hearing the story. I mean, we almost kind of went right back to where we started. It's not like, we don't all keep in touch. We're all great friends today. Someone could bring us into a studio and tell us you're going on air in 5 minutes, and that segment would be good because it's not a fake. We all like each other. We all mix very well together. It's not fake. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
It's not like we have to be fake with each other. We just have a ball. It just clicks. That's the only way I can say it. It just clicks.
And at that 90-second launch event, I
Yeah.
certainly felt the family because I could tell you guys had so many stories today. It's like Mark, he was just really, he wanted to tell so many stories, and I think you were a part of it as well. And Harvey, what's his name? Mike, and D, Byron, they were just all.
Yeah, Michael. They. Yeah, and the beauty about Klinghoffer and Calderwood and well, not even Byron because he was on thing, but the beauty of them, they just let us go. They knew that Mark was an ex-comedian and Harvey was a morning DJ, and they knew that I was at college, that I was athletic and I could keep up with the boys. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't really put any stipulations on us. Every once in a while they'd say whoa 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 whoa, but they
Hmm.
really let us go. They really let us do our thing. And we had, I mean, we really, and again, I attribute a lot of that to Mark because what people don't understand is it's very hard to hold an audience where you have kids and adults. You either win over the adults or you win over the kids. Mark won over everybody because he incorporated everybody. The older people got his jokes and the younger people got his jokes. I mean, that takes talent to do that. That's not easy to do.
It's certainly not. I mean, there's certain TV hosts today, they kind of don't have that charm that Mark did. I mean, you see they kind of come close to it, but they just don't really have the necessary effect that Mark had. And he just made everybody feel like a part of the whole show and the audience. He just made them feel comfortable. He just has it.
Well, look what he did for me. I mean, when I first started as his assistant, you'd see my hand, or he'd say something to me off stage. And by the end, I mean, Mark was like, "Come on out here, Robin, do this, do that." I mean, he was instrumental in making me a part of it. He really was. By the end, I didn't even have to look at him. I knew what he was thinking, what he was going to ask me, what he was going to do, and we had. I mean, those laughs that we had on air were not fake. We were literally laughing all day and all night. I mean, the ridiculousness of that show just it was all we did was laugh.
Right, right. And it's funny, production assistant. One thing I'm surprised was that I looked on IMDb and you were also a PA for Get the Picture. Do you remember that show, the game show?
Well, you know what? I do a little bit, but they immediately pulled me from being a production assistant to going on and being Mark on stage with Mark, and that took off very quickly. So those roles that I was doing on the other shows, I didn't have to do anymore. I mean, Mark knew that I wanted to be on air, and my goal was to be on the talent side of things. It wasn't like I wanted to be a production assistant. It was my first, you know, my first paid gig out of college. So I decided to take it and go with it. And, I still attribute it to him. He basically incorporated me and I give myself a little credit too. I mean, to be incorporated, you also have to be able to keep up, and I did. Mark is high energy, stamina all the time. I had to be alert all the time, and I was, and it worked, and we worked really well together.
Absolutely. What was the
And I
best?
think that somebody's crazy, and I've said it all along. Somebody's crazy for not bringing back some aspect of us being together, whether it's a talk show or, and I don't mean just me and Mark. I mean Harvey. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't beat a combination that works like that.
Oh, no, you can't. I mean, we would love to see a reunion, but there's a lot of stuff in TV now that's really changed, and the game show format is not really as popular as it once was, and it's really
Right.
unfortunate to see it that way. And but still, we just want to see good entertainment TV.
But even if you're not doing a game show, even I mean, when we did the 92nd Street Y in New York City, that was a talk show. We weren't throwing pies or anything. But I have to tell you, when I read all the comments after that reunion, people wanted to see more of the double dare aspect, more of the talking between Mark and I, between Harvey and Mark. They wanted to see it. They wanted more. And I've always said to Mark, somebody should capitalize on a talk show or something, because you just, have you ever seen a talk show where you're like, oh boy, they're not clicking at all? I mean, I've seen it. I've seen shows where I'm like, wow, those two are not clicking at all. It's not easy to get a group of people together that click that much. It's not.
No, it is. It's not easy at all. I mean, I just really wish that you guys, but I think I'll plan it. Hey, if you guys need an event plan, I'll do it right away. I'm telling you now.
Yeah, well, we'll see, whatever works, whoever wants to plan it. I mean, that's not, I'm not, my gift is not planning things. You know what I'm saying? Like they tell me where to go, I go and I do what they ask me to do, and we have fun. But planning it's tough. But I do realize that it's hard. It's hard to plan something, and TV has changed. But I do think that game shows have changed because they haven't brought in talented production. I think Nickelodeon made some real mistakes letting Mark go and not producing more shows or doing more shows. That's my opinion. I don't know the ins and outs of the legal aspect of all that, but they missed out on that.
Yeah, they sure did. They sure did. And what was the best part about having a live studio audience, seeing all those tapings a day, you know?
Well, the beauty for me was I can't speak for others. The beauty for me was is that looking at the kids and realizing that their dream was to come meet Mark or Harvey and go see the Nickelodeon studios and even though they were in the studio audience for probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, you could just see the joy on their faces. I mean, and they were just, and it was so intimate too. It was like they weren't far away. The obstacle course was right up against where people were sitting. So I think it was fun for them to see, a live show being taped. And again, Mark and I spent, and Harvey and Dave, all of us spent, every single person who wanted an autograph came up to us. We gave them the time. And I think people were very appreciative of that too. I mean, it was a very family, homey atmosphere. And I think Nickelodeon has gotten away from that a little bit, and I think they need to get back to that.
I
They
can't, I
need to
can't,
get back to bringing the audiences in.
yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think, you're certainly not the person who feels that way. There's thousands of others who feel that Nickelodeon is not the same network as it used to be. But hey, it is what it is. And speaking of the obstacle course, that I'm so glad that you said that because one of my favorite things was the gumball machine. That was really
Oh, that
the
was awesome.
yeah.
That's all Byron Taylor. But he came up with all that stuff. I mean, nobody. I mean, really. I mean, you're right. Or the nose ticket. Remember the nose ticket?
Oh yeah,
He did that
absolutely.
stuff. Yeah, it was awesome. He's awesome. I don't, and he's the best. He's the best of the best.
And he did that. And what would you do? And you know what's funny about what would you do? There was other guests from other Nick shows who would come in like Phil Moore. I remember seeing D. Bradley Baker on one show. He voiced Olmec on Legends of the Hidden Temple. And I
No,
think,
I never met him. I mean, I knew Phil because there was one time where Mark burst an eardrum in his left ear, and Phil Moore was sent on the road with me to do the Double Dare shows. He filled in for Mark, and he's a very talented guy too. And it's funny because I just saw him in New York City when we did the Y event, and he's talented too. He's a very talented guy, as well as Mike O'Malley, who, as you know, has gone on to do the show Glee
hmm
and plenty of commercials and plenty of movies. I mean, I have to say, Nickelodeon did pick some good talent for their shows. They did.
absolutely. What was one of the good things about living and working in Orlando from your years being there? Did you like being there because it was really a family-friendly environment with the theme parks and Nickelodeon there and Disney? It was kind of like a competitive vibe at the time, you know. It still is, actually.
Yeah, it was great living there. I mean, I don't even remember how many years I lived there, but I had a nice condo, and you're being treated like a queen, and you're in and out of great studio. I mean, when I try to explain to my kids what I did for a living, they don't quite get it. But and then you had family came to visit, and everything was right there. I remember Orlando living being a lot easier than living in Philadelphia, New York. I remember that. It was always nice outside. You'd leave work and you get to go swimming, or you go to the beach, or when you were living in Philadelphia or New York, sometimes you're in the dead middle of winter, and that's it. You leave the studio and you go back to your hotel, or you go back home. I live in New Jersey right now, and you go back home, but one thing I did miss one thing I don't think Orlando had at the time that I missed was the culture of Philadelphia, the culture of New York City. Now that may have changed. I don't know that, but when I was living back there, I so enjoyed my years there, but I also missed the culture of New York City. You know, so
hmm
it's past 22. But yes, my years in Orlando it's a beautiful city, and we had so much fun, and everything you did was outdoors, and I love that.
Right, right. I agree with you about the culture, missing the culture of upstate because I'm from New York myself, and I could definitely relate to that. The heat though would have been a bothersome thing for me. I'm sure it was hot down there all the time whenever I go down there.
Well, I do remember leaving, when I used to have to leave the studio to go to lunch. I
Hmm.
remember dripping, and I had all that makeup on, and I remember being very uncomfortable because right when I come back from lunch, I'd have to go back in the makeup room because everything would be melted off, which is kind of gross. But, again, I was one of the only ones who had a lot of makeup on because I was the only female. But it was gross. Yeah, it was gross. But, I mean, the beauty of Orlando and the weather and how nice the people were totally outweigh the heat. And again, when we were going outside and swimming and all that, remember, it was after 6 or 7 at night when we were in the studios all day, and the studios were air conditioned, so we weren't uncomfortable, you
Oh,
know?
okay. Yeah, and the people who worked there, I've always heard positive stories about how everyone was so professional at what they did. From your experience in Florida, from the Nick studio people, the staff, how great was everyone that worked there as well?
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Bob Brandenburg is still one of my best friends today. He was on the talent, I don't know if you know him, he was on the talent end of stuff. He was, hiring talent, and yeah, I mean, every one of them. I can't remember being in Philadelphia or Orlando and ever having a bad experience with the staff and the crew, you know?
Wow.
From the makeup people to the nurse to the people on the production side, and yeah, you had your mini arguments here and there, but yeah, I remember the Orlando crew just being so much fun and so good at what they did. There's nothing bad to say, really.
Yeah, I
I
do.
also remember most of the executives that were working in Orlando came from New York. So it wasn't a change on the executive level for us. We still had Klinghoffer and Calderwood and,
Hmm.
and the whole group came. But as for the camera guys and the stage crew and the people behind the scenes, they were phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Definitely, definitely. You definitely can't beat an experience like that anymore. And speaking of Bob Brandenburg, I do know him. In fact, I did talk to him, and we cool. We kind of text each other, and he did mention you. You helped out with him in Game Lab, where you remember that the Game Lab. He said that you part out a little bit. You and Greg
Mm-hmm.
Lee, were
Yep,
there. Hmm.
yep, yep. Another phenomenal talent, Greg Lee. I mean, he did. I guess he did. Yeah, he did Where in the World. I think he did Where in the World with Carmen San Diego, and he used to be the person who would warm up the audiences for us. And I mean, how talented is Greg Lee? My God.
Right.
I mean, again, it was just weird. It was a weird, eclectic group of people who were brought together, but everybody provided some talent. I mean, Bob Brandenburg is one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my life. The fact that he doesn't have his own talk show is beyond me. I mean, he's just fun, quick-witted, funny. He's one of my best friends today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're just great people. The people who work there, and I'm certainly glad I got to do this project and know a lot of them and know a lot of them. And but I want to talk about the theme park for Universal. Did you have a favorite ride or attraction there, Universal Studios?
I don't really remember. I don't remember. I mean, you were in the theme park so many times. I mean, the theme park today is not what it was back then. There's 1,000 more things there today. I
Hmm.
took my kids there a few years ago, and I was shocked at how it changed. Um, I was never a real roller coastery person, so I never really did much of that. I honestly don't remember. I really don't. I remember the theme park was beautiful. I remember they had that little dino where everybody was on roller skates, but everybody was, and that was fun. I remember walking around and thinking how clean and pretty it was. But the attractions, they had that, that Harrison Ford attraction. I think what was that attraction? What was that movie he was on?
Oh, Indiana Jones was that?
Yeah, I remember that. That was there. I really don't remember a lot of the attractions. I remember going on the road show and having to travel to theme parks that were outside of Universal. I remember those. So they would always take pictures of Mark and I on roller coasters and all that stuff. And I remember being nauseous. The motion sickness makes me nauseous. But yeah, I mean, it was. I just remember Universal being very clean and very well run. I do remember that.
Yeah, it's definitely a bigger part now. Wait, I don't think Indiana Jones is it. Is that Earthquake? It's kind of similar to that. Was that what you were
Oh,
thinking about?
maybe. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, yeah, the earthquake. I remember now. Yeah, earthquake was there because I remember. I remember going on that numerous times. Maybe that was it. Maybe I took them to Indiana Jones when I was there with my kids. But I do. Those are the two that come to mind. Yeah,
Yeah,
earthquake was good. Yeah.
and another one that people loved that I hear from people was Back to the Future back then. Do you remember that,
Yeah,
Ryan?
I don't remember. You know, I've been to so many theme parks since then. I get confused as which
Right,
one was where. You know, you have to remember. Mark and I were on the road for a year, and everything was theme parky at the time. You know.
right. Right, because that's where the most attraction and visitors who you guys could get the most guests, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, and speaking of the studio, it's been gone for like 9 years now, and Nick Studios, everyone's missed it. Would you like to see it reopen one day? Do you think it should come back?
You know, I'd like to see what it looks like now without it there. But yeah, I mean, it was such a success. I don't know how they can let that go. You know, I don't know what the entertainment industry is like though in Orlando right now. Maybe it's changed. Maybe
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
it's
but I
definitely
do.
changed.
Yeah, when Nickelodeon was there, I just remember if they can go back to what it was like years ago, yes, they should bring it back. But if it, you know, I don't know what the entertainment industry is like there. I don't know where you know if it's still Los Angeles, it's a hot industry for television.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I mean, I'm out of that world right now.
hmm
So I'd have to go back and view it myself to see if it would be a success.
Yeah, the entertainment industry in Orlando it's definitely fizzled over the years because there's not really a lot of production going on there as it once was because that was one of the factors, and plus the studio it kind of lost popularity starting in the new millennium, so that's one of the reasons why it closed. But it certainly was successful, and I think there needs to be some sort of type of balance for Nickelodeon now to bring back live action shows and game shows, and I think Nick Studios definitely could do that this time around, you know?
Oh, you know, I hope they do it. You know, I hope that they find their way again. You know.
Right. So, what have you been up to these days? Because a lot of people want to know that. Do you mind telling that us?
Oh no, not at all. You know, I do a lot of commercials in the area. I do a lot of testimonials. I still do a lot of on air. I have two kids that are in middle school, so they keep me busy.
hmm
Mark and I still go on the road and do some stuff, and I stay very active with that. And so basically, you know, it's kind of like I'm, you know, half the time I'm a mom and half the time I'm still doing on air stuff. And I love every aspect of it. Now, I could not go on the road and do what I did years ago because I have two kids I'm raising. I have a
hmm
son who's in eighth grade and a daughter who's in seventh grade, and I have a husband who travels on the road for sales. So I can honestly say if I never worked in TV again, at least I fulfilled my dream. You know,
hmm
nothing was better than the 20 years I worked at Nickelodeon. And again, I saw all these people back in December and we picked the way back up. But I do a lot of testimonials. I work for a company out of New Jersey that does testimonials for TV, and I do a lot of those. And, you know, my dream would be to probably host a talk show with Mark or Harvey. I think that would be a huge success. Who knows if that'll come? You know, I still keep in touch with both of them, and you know, they're both busy in their lives. But it's fun being a mom too. I love it. I love my kids more than life itself, and I wouldn't change any aspect of being home with them when I can.
That is awesome. A talk show, I'm just now thinking about, I think what would be really cool was to be interviewed, the guests who were past contestants on Double Dare and interview them about their experience. I think that would be sort of cool, but of course,
Oh,
I'm just going.
absolutely. The beauty of ever having Mark Harvey and I do something, even Dave. You know, we don't need whole lot of prodding. You know, we don't need a whole lot of script. We just go. I mean, there was no script when we were together in December. They just let us go, and it's always a success because we genuinely have fun and we genuinely like each other. And you know, sometimes you can't make that up.
Right, not at all. I mean, it's definitely made such a positive impact on fans, and all of the Double Dare, the '90s shows, they've still loved by everyone today. How does that make you feel, knowing that?
I still get. I went on Facebook recently, and the Facebook Double Dare 25th anniversary page, contacted me, and I wrote back to them. I must have gotten 300 people who wanted to friend me on Facebook just from Double Dare. It's still so fresh in people's minds. I mean, again, I live my life here, and I'm a mom, and but when I go out and do the Double Dare appearances, there's still people who, I mean, that show was a hit. They love it. They loved how much fun we had. I loved being a part of it, and I've always said to Mark from day one, I said we should do a talk show together. It's we'll see what the future brings. It's not over yet. It's not over till it's over.
Right, right. Not at all. The future still hangs brightly. I have to say that.
Right, exactly. And I coach, I coach a lot of sports. I'm the basketball coach for my daughter's teams, and I stay very involved. Some of it's TV, and some of it's being a mom. And I think I have a nice mix of both, and I wouldn't want to give up either of them, especially not spending time with my kids. That's highly important to me.
Yes, absolutely. That's so awesome. But the last question I want to ask you is, what do you think made Nick Studios so great and special from your experience?
Well, I think Jerry Rayborn had vision.
Hmm.
I think the beauty of her was to even create a network just for kids. I think my opinion is the right combination years ago worked. I think the combination that's there now is not 100% working. I think they lost a lot of good people. I think they need a visionary, and I think they need someone. Mark was the face of Nickelodeon for years. They
Hmm.
need another face of Nickelodeon. They need another hit like that to get everybody going again. Now, of course, there's some great shows on Nickelodeon. Don't get me wrong. I think they've done a good job with some of the comedies and stuff. But I think they got away from family television and families being together and, parents running home and turning on the TV and making sure that the next show that the kids love is on. They got to get back to that. They
Yeah,
do. And,
I
my kids are out of the Nickelodeon stage. They don't watch any of the Nick shows too much anymore. But, they went from game shows to animation to the sitcom things, and there was a nice mixture back then. They have to get more of a mix back in air.
absolutely, I agree with you. The game shows, we just need those back. We need messy entertainment back. We need slime back, basically, you know?
Yeah, yeah, they got away from what that network was about. That network was about green slime, kids having fun. I mean, I don't hear people talking so much about Nickelodeon anymore. Now, again, my kids are older, but they
Hmm.
need to get some shows back where even my kids' age friends are like, yeah, did you see that Nick show? You know,
Hmm.
there's shows on TV now that kids just love, and I don't hear Nick's name mentioned much anymore. I mean, my kids watch the Double Dare show, and they look at me like, what the heck were you doing, Mom? They weren't of that generation either. I mean, my son was almost embarrassed to see me on TV. But, you know, now when now he's going to be 15, and now that my friends, now my friends who have kids at age see it, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. That show is so cool. You know what I'm saying? They got to
Right.
get back to the programming that brings families back together. You know what I'm saying? That's what they need to do.
Yeah, it's funny. I really don't hear Nick being mentioned at all. It's not popular like the late '80s from doing Double Dare to the mid '90s. Those were definitely the glory years. I would say those were definitely the golden age of the network. And now it's kind of not the same, but I kind of get it because they're not really focusing on game shows anymore. But
Well,
still.
they need to start focusing on stuff that they've got to stop focusing on what they think is working. Nickelodeon needs to go back to get them, go back, ask the people what they want, because some of the stuff they're doing is not working. Go back, go to the people. What do they want? What do they want to see? A
Hmm.
lot of the kids are into reality shows now. I mean, I'm not a huge reality show fan, but do something that, they should get a camera and follow Mark around for a day. See what he does. People love that. People love him. His,
Yeah.
his ratings are still high to this day from that show. You know?
Right.
Do
Right.
something. Do something that's different. Everything that Nickelodeon's doing now looks the same to me.
Right. Right. I agree
Make
with
it
you.
different. Make it different. Make it appealing. Make it more appealing to people. And again, I feel that I can say this a little more than I back then because I have kids. I know what they're into.
Hmm. Yeah, we need more.
Do a sports show for kids. My son, what teenage boy is not into sports or ESPN, do something that do that. You know?
Yeah, it needs more variety. That's what it basically needs. Because there was Double Dare, there was Guts, which was a sports show. There was Roundhouse, which was like a singing, dancing show. There was Clarissa, which was
Right.
live action. And of course,
Right.
Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy, the animation. It really blended well together, all of that. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
It,
Which, yeah.
it did. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was definitely the highlight, but we all just wishing that it could get back to that format one day. Hopefully, we'll.
Yeah. Again, Nickelodeon was very good to me.
Hmm.
And Mark was very good to me. So, I'm hoping for its success. But they need to, they need to bring it back. They need to start taking some advice from the studio audience instead of thinking that, so
Hmm.
you try the next thing,
Right, right. I agree with you. Absolutely. But I'm so glad I got to talk to you today,
Yes, I apologize for taking so long to do this, and I really thank you for the time. And I'm really, I'm really thankful that you kept getting in touch, or this wouldn't have happened. Every evening, you just email or call, okay?
Okay, cool. So that would be the best way to communicate with you, do text or
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Perfect.
And it was such a pleasure talking to you, and really, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. I'm just glad got to talk to you and be a part of the project because I have over 50 interviews now, so you're like probably 57th, I want to say. I'm not sure
Well,
though.
great. And it was such, really, thank you for doing this. And it was really a pleasure talking to you. If you need anything else, don't hesitate to call, okay?
All right, cool. Have a good day, Robin. Enjoy.
You too. It was a pleasure talking to you. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.